If you're a clinical educator, you definitely know the feeling. You want to teach, you really do, but the day is just a complete whirlwind of patient care. In this explainer, we're going to break down how to turn those totally chaotic clinical moments into powerful, high-yield teaching opportunities. Let's dive right in.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? The pager's buzzing, your patient list is a mile long, and you're supposed to be guiding a learner through it all. It can feel completely impossible. But what if we've been looking at this whole problem the wrong way?
You see, the real secret isn't about magically finding more minutes in the day. It's about having a playbook, a set of high-impact strategies that you can run in just a few seconds. It's all about being super efficient and intentional, even when it feels like you're just trying to keep your head above water.
So let's kick things off with our very first play, the foundation. Because before you can teach a single medical fact, you have to build the right environment. This is all about creating what we call the learning zone.
Think about it. At its core, learning requires you to be vulnerable. And that's exactly where psychological safety comes in. It is the absolute bedrock that lets learners take risks, ask those so-called dumb questions, and admit when they just don't know something. Without it, real learning, it's just not going to happen. This matrix just lays it all out so perfectly. If you have low accountability, you get apathy, or, just a comfort zone. But high accountability without safety, that just creates the anxiety zone. The magic, the place we want to be, is in that sweet spot, the learning zone. This is where we combine really high expectations with really high psychological safety. That's our target.
And here's the thing. Building this zone really comes down to simple everyday actions. Ask your learner how they're really doing. Share a time you struggled with something similar. It just completely normalizes the process. Go out of your way to invite their thoughts and make it crystal clear that no question is off limits. These small moves, they can create a massive shift in the learning climate.
Okay, so with that foundation of safety in place, we can move on to our second play, the pre-game huddle. This is where we stop being reactive and start being proactive, aligning on the day's goals before all the chaos really begins. The Learning Huddle is such an efficient tool. Seriously, it's just a quick 5-minute meeting before rounds. All you do is ask each learner, hey, what's one thing you want to get better at today? This lets you connect their goals to real patients. You can say, oh, that's great. We actually have a patient with that exact issue. Make sure you pay close attention to this. It just immediately aligns everyone's focus and makes the day's learning so much more intentional.
All right, on to play number 3, the encounter itself. Now we're in the thick of it, and this is where the most dynamic teaching happens. Your goal here isn't just to transfer facts, it's to make your expert thinking process totally visible.
A novice sees a bunch of symptoms. An expert sees a pattern. Your job is to bridge that huge gap by literally narrating your thought process. It's all about revealing the how and the why behind your clinical decisions.
A really powerful way to do this is by escalating your questions, kind of like climbing a ladder using Bloom's taxonomy. So don't just ask for basic facts. Push your learners up that ladder of thinking. You move from what are the symptoms to why are these labs significant, and then maybe to, okay, but what if the patient also had this condition? Every single step up builds more sophisticated clinical reasoning.
But listen, it's not just about them answering your questions. You have to model the thinking process yourself. So as you're working, think out loud. Something like, okay, I'm seeing an elevated heart rate here. Now, given their history, my mind is going to X, but I'm ruling out Y because of Z. You're basically inviting the learner to eavesdrop on your clinical reasoning, and that is one of the most powerful teaching tools there is. The patient encounter might be over, but the teaching, not by a long shot. And that brings us to our fourth play, the debrief. This is where we really make the learning stick. It's so important to remember that feedback isn't criticism, it's just fuel for growth. A fantastic framework for this is the ask-tell-ask model. It's simple. First, you ask for the learner's self-assessment. This empowers them and it gives you a peek into their thinking. Then you tell them your specific objective observations. Finally, you ask them to work with you on an action plan for next time. It completely turns feedback into a conversation, not just a lecture. Now, for those moments when you have even less time, there's the 5 micro skills model. This is like a rapid-fire feedback loop. You get a commitment from them, what do you think is going on? You probe for their evidence, you teach one general rule, you reinforce something they did well, and you correct one key mistake. It's super quick, focused, and incredibly effective on the fly. This brings us to another amazing tool, the ladder of inference, which is perfect for navigating mistakes.
Instead of just jumping to a conclusion, you start with a neutral observation, the raw data. Hey, I noticed you didn't ask about X. Then, you share your perspective. I was a little concerned we might be missing Y. And finally, you ask about their thinking. What was on your mind in that moment? This opens up a real dialogue to understand their reasoning rather than just pointing out a flaw.
For our final play, we're zooming way out to see the bigger picture. Because truly great clinical teaching, it goes beyond the differential diagnosis. It's about teaching the whole person. And I mean both the patient and the learner.
I mean, look at this data. It's staggering. As educators, we spend almost all our time focused on that 20% slice labeled healthcare. But up to 80% of a patient's health is determined by social factors, like their job, their neighborhood, their access to food. We have a real obligation to teach our learners to see and address this much, much bigger picture.
And just as we teach about the whole patient, we've got to support the whole learner. Check out this simple but honestly transformative strategy. Just pause for 5 to 10 seconds after you ask a question. That silence gives more introverted learners time to actually think, and it improves the quality of answers from absolutely everyone. It is such a small change that creates a way more inclusive and thoughtful learning environment.
So, ultimately, our role is to guide learners along this developmental journey, which is framed here by the RHYME model. We help them go from being a reliable reporter of facts to an interpreter who can explain what it all means, to a manager who really takes ownership of the care plan. And the final step, they become an educator themselves, totally ready to teach the next generation. That, right there, is the true goal of what we do.
So there you have it, the educator's playbook. It just goes to show you don't need more time, you just need the right plays. Your very next patient is a lesson just waiting to be taught. So the only question left is, what will you teach?